My phone buzzed against the stainless steel counter of the nurse's station at exactly 7:14 p.m. I glanced down expecting a lab result or a schedule change. Instead, I saw an email from my father Brian. The subject line read, "Update regarding family Christmas." I opened it with sanitizer still drying on my hands, the sharp smell of alcohol filling my nose. The message was brutally brief. "Morgan, due to limited capacity this year, we cannot accommodate you for Christmas. Make other arrangements." I wasn't just uninvited. I was erased from a house I'd been secretly paying for. If you're interested in this topic, hit the like button, subscribe, and type "interested" in the comments. And I will give you a heart. My name is Morgan Ashford, and I'm 34 years old. For the last 12 years, I've worked as a trauma nurse in one of the busiest emergency departments in Boston. I've held pressure on gunshot wounds while talking teenagers through the worst nights of their lives. I've performed CPR until my arms gave out. I've pronounced people dead and then walked to the next room to save someone else. I'm good at my job because I've learned to compartmentalize. To shut off the emotion and let the training take over. That skill, that ability to feel nothing while everything is burning around me, that's what saved me when I read my father's email. I stood under the fluorescent lights of the nurse's station, the familiar hum of hospital machinery creating white noise around me, and I felt my emotions shut down like circuit breakers flipping off one by one. Hurt. Click. Off. Anger. Click. Off. Surprise. Click. Off. What remained was cold, clinical clarity. The same clarity I get during a code blue when a patient is crashing and there's no time for panic, only action. I didn't cry. Didn't throw my phone. Didn't storm into the break room to vent to my coworkers about family drama. I simply sat down on the vinyl stool at the nurse's station, the material squeaking slightly under my weight, and I did what I always do when presented with a problem. I assessed the situation systematically. I opened my banking app. My thumb moved automatically to the Scheduled Transfers tab, muscle memory from checking it monthly to make sure everything was processing correctly. There it was, pending for the first of the month, exactly where it had been for the last 6 years. Main house mortgage, $3,800. $3,800. Every month. For 6 years. That's $45,600 per year. Over 6 years, I had transferred $273,600 into my parents' account to cover the mortgage on their estate in coastal Maine. The estate where I was apparently no longer welcome for Christmas. I stared at that number on my phone screen. It didn't look like money anymore. It looked like a diagnosis. A tumor that had been growing silently for years, fed by my own hand, and I'd been too busy, too tired, too desperate for their approval to recognize the symptoms. Let me back up and explain how I became the family ATM, because it didn't start with malice. It started with what looked like love, which is always how the worst betrayals begin. 6 years ago, my father Brian called me at work. It was unusual because my father never called me at work, never acknowledged that I had a demanding job that required focus and presence. But he called, and his voice had that careful tone people use when they're about to ask for something big. "Morgan, honey, I need to talk to you about something important. Family business. Family business." Those 2 words were the password that unlocked every boundary I'd ever tried to set. I was raised to believe that family business meant you dropped everything, you showed up, you sacrificed, because that's what good daughters do. "What's wrong, Dad?" I asked, stepping into the supply closet for privacy. "It's the house. The estate. The roof is failing, the foundation has some water damage from the nor'easter last winter, and the electrical system is so old the insurance company is threatening to drop our coverage if we don't update it. We're looking at about $180,000 in repairs." I felt my stomach drop. "That's a lot of money, Dad." I know. Your mother and we've been trying to figure out how to handle it. The house has been in the family for 3 generations. We can't let it fall apart. But our credit, it's not what it used to be. That was an understatement. My father had started and failed 3 different business ventures in the past decade. A tech startup that never launched. A consulting firm that lost its only major client. A commercial property investment that turned out to be a money pit. Each failure had damaged his credit score, racked up debt, and made him essentially unbankable. What are you asking me to do? I said, though I already knew. We need a co-signer for the renovation loan. Someone with good credit and steady income. The bank said with your credit score and your employment history, they'd approve the loan immediately. You wouldn't have to pay anything. We'd handle all the payments. We just need your signature. I should have said no. I should have recognized this for what it was, a financial trap disguised as family loyalty. But I was 38 years old, single, living alone in a city where I had work colleagues but not real friends, and the idea that my family needed me, that I could be essential to preserving our legacy, it filled a hole I didn't want to admit existed. Okay, I said. I'll co-sign. The relief in my father's voice was immediate and effusive. Thank you, Morgan. Thank you. This means everything. You're saving the family home. Your mother is going to be so grateful. We won't forget this. They did forget it. Or maybe they never remembered it in the first place. The loan was approved. The renovations were completed. The estate, a sprawling property with ocean views and enough bedrooms to house a small army, was restored to its former glory. And for about 8 months, my parents made the mortgage payments on time. Then the calls started. Morgan, honey, we're a little short this month. Brian's consulting contract fell through. Could you cover the mortgage just this once? We'll pay you back next month. Next month came. They didn't pay me back. They asked me to cover it again. And again. And somewhere around month 12, the asking stopped and the expecting began. It became an unspoken arrangement. I paid the mortgage. They lived in the house. And in exchange, I got to be part of the family. I got invited to Thanksgiving. I got included in the Christmas card photo. I got to pretend that I mattered to them as much as the house did. Except I didn't matter. The house mattered. The appearances mattered. The ability to host elaborate parties and impress their social circle with their oceanfront estate, that mattered. I was just the infrastructure. The foundation. The wiring. Essential but invisible. Meant to be hidden behind the walls. I realized all of this sitting in that nurse's station, staring at the scheduled transfer on my phone screen. I thought about my brother Jared, 3 years younger than me, who had never held a job for longer than 18 months. Jared, who described himself as an entrepreneur but who I would describe as chronically unemployed. Jared, who still lived at the estate rent-free, who drove a BMW he couldn't afford, who posted Instagram photos of his lifestyle brand consulting business that as far as I could tell consisted entirely of taking selfies with motivational quotes. Jared would be at Christmas. Of course he would. Jared was always welcome because Jared never demanded accountability. Never asked uncomfortable questions. Never made our parents feel like they owed him anything. I thought about my mother Susan, who had spent the last 6 years redecorating that house with my mortgage money. New furniture for the living room. A renovated kitchen with marble countertops. Custom curtains for every window. She turned that estate into her personal showpiece, a monument to her taste and status. And now she was telling me there wasn't room for me at Christmas. I looked at the transfer schedule for next week. $3,800. Money I earned by working 12-hour shifts, by missing holidays, by sacrificing any semblance of work-life balance. Money that I could have used to pay off my student loans, to save for my own house, to build my own life. Instead, I'd poured it into a property that my name was legally attached to but my presence was apparently forbidden from. The sunk cost fallacy. That's what this was. It's a concept in behavioral economics where you continue investing in something, not because it's the right decision, but because you've already invested so much that walking away feels like admitting failure. I kept paying the mortgage not because my parents treated me well, but because I'd already paid so much. I thought I was buying equity in my family's affection. I thought I was purchasing a permanent seat at the table. I thought that if I just gave enough, sacrificed enough, proved myself valuable enough, they would finally see me as essential. But love isn't a subscription service. You shouldn't have to pay a monthly premium just to be tolerated. I tapped on the transfer. A menu appeared: edit, skip, cancel series. My finger hovered over cancel series. This wasn't a decision to make lightly. This was 6 years of family dynamics. This was the only connection I had to people who shared my DNA. This was walking away from $273,000 I'd already spent with no way to get it back. But it was also freedom. It was refusing to fund my own exclusion. It was choosing myself over people who'd never chosen me. I selected cancel series. The app asked for confirmation. Are you sure you want to cancel this recurring payment? I didn't hesitate. Didn't second guess. Didn't give myself time to talk myself out of it. I confirmed. The scheduled transfer disappeared from my screen. Just like that, the digital umbilical cord that had connected me to my family's approval for 6 years was severed. It was clean. Surgical. Final. I closed the app and slid my phone back into my scrub pocket. Took a deep breath. The sharp smell of hospital antiseptic filled my lungs. I felt lighter. The anger hadn't arrived yet. That would come later, I knew. The grief would come too, the mourning for the family I'd wanted them to be versus the family they actually were. But in that moment, standing in the fluorescent-lit nurse's station with a code blue alarm going off somewhere down the hall, all I felt was calm. Clear. Focused. They wanted me gone from Christmas. Fine. But they'd forgotten something crucial. When you cut off the person funding your lifestyle, the lights go out. I walked back onto the floor. I had patients who needed me. People whose lives I could actually save. And for the first time in 6 years, I wasn't going to waste my energy trying to resuscitate a relationship with people who were drowning me to keep themselves afloat. The notification came 3 days later. I was at home, finally off shift, sitting in my apartment with a cup of coffee and the kind of silence that only comes after surviving a particularly brutal week in the ER. My phone buzzed. Email notification. Bank of America, payment returned, insufficient authorization. I opened it. The mortgage payment had bounced. The transfer I'd been making automatically for 6 years had tried to process, hit the cancellation I'd set up, and been rejected. I imagined the email my father was probably reading at the same moment. The notification from his bank. Mortgage payment failed. Account overdrawn. And I smiled. Not a nice smile. Not a happy smile. The kind of smile you see on a surgeon's face when they've successfully removed a tumor that's been killing the patient. It's satisfaction mixed with exhaustion mixed with the grim understanding that the recovery is going to hurt worse than the disease. My phone rang 30 seconds later. Dad. I let it ring. Once, twice, 3 times. Let him sit with the panic. Let him feel the fear of financial consequences, something I'd been protecting him from for 6 years. On the 4th ring, I answered. I didn't say hello. Just pressed the green button and held the phone to my ear, waiting. Morgan. His voice was tight, strained, vibrating with barely controlled panic. What the hell is going on with the bank? The mortgage transfer bounced. It says insufficient authorization. You need to call your bank immediately and fix this error. It's not an error, I said. My voice was calm, steady, clinical. I canceled the transfer. Silence. Complete, shocked silence. I could hear him breathing on the other end of the line, could practically hear the gears in his mind trying to process what I just said, trying to find the angle that would make this make sense. You what? His voice had gone up an octave. I canceled the automatic transfer. I'm not paying your mortgage anymore, Dad. Are you insane? He shouted, and I held the phone slightly away from my ear. Do you have any idea what you've done? We have vendors to pay. The caterer from the Christmas party planning meeting, the decorator, those checks are going to clear this week. If the mortgage money isn't in the account, we're going to overdraft. Do you understand what that means? I understood perfectly. He wasn't just using my money for the mortgage. He was using it as a slush fund. Using my mortgage payment to cover his cash flow, to float his lifestyle expenses, to maintain appearances. My money wasn't going to the house. It was going to his ego. That sounds like a problem, I said. But it's not my problem anymore. Morgan, stop being petty, he snapped, his voice taking on that authoritative tone he'd used when I was a child, the tone that used to make me scramble to comply. I know you're upset about the Christmas invitation. It was a logistical issue, okay? Your mother feels terrible. We simply didn't have the bedrooms. We have important people coming. Investors for Jared's new venture. We had to prioritize. You should understand. Sometimes you take one for the team. Take one for the team. I almost laughed. I've been funding the team for 6 years, Dad. I bought the uniforms. I built the stadium. I paid for the lights. And you benched me. You didn't just bench me, you erased me from the roster entirely. Don't be dramatic, he scoffed. Look, transfer the money right now and we can discuss this later like adults. If you don't, you're only hurting yourself. You think you can just walk away from this? The loan is in your name too. If we default, your credit gets destroyed along with ours. You need us as much as we need you. Do I? I asked, and I heard the ice in my own voice. Do I need you, Dad? Let me think about that. What exactly do you provide for me? What do I get out of this arrangement besides the privilege of funding a lifestyle I'm not allowed to participate in? You ungrateful, I'm hanging up now, I interrupted. Good luck with the vendors. And Dad. Merry Christmas. I ended the call before he could respond. Set the phone down on my coffee table. Looked out the window at the Boston skyline, the city lights reflecting off the harbor in the distance. My hands were shaking. Not from fear. From adrenaline. From the sheer visceral satisfaction of finally saying what I should have said 6 years ago. He thought he had leverage. Thought he could guilt me, manipulate me, threaten my credit score and make me fall back in line. He didn't realize the game had changed. He wasn't holding the cards anymore. I was. And I was about to show him exactly what happens when you treat infrastructure like it's disposable. Because here's what my father didn't understand about nurses: we're trained to make life or death decisions in seconds. We're trained to cut away dead tissue to save the living parts. We're trained to know when a patient is beyond saving and when it's time to let go. My family was beyond saving. The relationship was necrotic. And I just made the call to amputate. The only question now was how much they'd bleed before they understood I wasn't coming back to stop the hemorrhaging. Christmas week arrived like a storm I could see coming from miles away but couldn't avoid. I didn't go to Maine. Didn't pack a bag. Didn't book a flight or rent a car. I stayed exactly where I was, in my 22nd floor apartment in Boston, surrounded by glass and steel and the kind of silence that comes from choosing yourself over people who never chose you. I made myself a cup of tea, the ceramic mug warming my cold hands, and I did the thing I knew I shouldn't do but couldn't resist. I opened Instagram. I told myself it was reconnaissance. Information gathering. But really, it was just the deeply human urge to touch a bruise to see if it still hurt. It did. The first post was from my brother Jared. A video story filmed from the deck of the estate, the same deck that had cost $45,000 to reinforce and weatherproof 3 years ago. Money I'd wired directly to the contractor because my father's credit card had been declined at the lumber yard. "Family time is the best time," Jared shouted over the sound of ocean waves, holding up a craft beer that probably cost $12. The camera panned across the deck, showing the view, granite cliffs dropping down to the Atlantic, winter's sun making the water look like hammered silver. Then the camera turned to show the party. My mother Susan, laughing with her head thrown back, a glass of wine in her hand. She was wearing a cashmere sweater I'd seen her post about last month, probably $400. My father Brian at the grill, wielding tongs like a conductor's baton, playing the role of patriarch and provider. Behind him, the kitchen windows glowed warm and golden, showing the marble countertops and custom cabinets that had cost $38,000 to install. Cousins I hadn't seen in years. Aunts and uncles who probably assumed I was too busy with work to come home for the holidays. College friends of Jared's who didn't know I existed. It wasn't just a party. It was a production. A carefully curated performance of family and abundance and tradition. And what struck me wasn't their happiness. What struck me was how seamless my absence was. There was no empty chair at the table. No pause in the conversation where someone said, "We should call Morgan." No gap in the family photo. It was as if I had never existed. They weren't missing me. They were thriving on what I provided, and my actual presence was apparently the only cost they weren't willing to pay. I scrolled to the next post. My mother had uploaded a photo, professionally composed, showing the living room decorated for Christmas. A 12-foot tree covered in ornaments. Stockings hung on the refurbished fireplace, the one I'd helped pay to restore after water damage 2 years ago. The caption read, "Blessed beyond measure to have this legacy to share with our children this Christmas. Family is everything. Our children." Plural. But only one child was actually there. I zoomed in on the photo, looking for details. New throw pillows on the couch. A painting I didn't recognize hanging above the mantel. Fresh flowers in a crystal vase on the side table. Everything perfect. Everything expensive. Everything funded by a daughter who wasn't invited to see it in person. The anger that had been coiled in my chest like a sleeping snake finally woke up. It wasn't hot or explosive. It was cold. Precise. It started in my sternum and spread through my body like frost forming on glass, making everything sharper, clearer, more brittle. They were drinking wine I'd paid for. Eating food prepared in a kitchen I'd funded. Sleeping under a roof I'd insured. Celebrating a legacy that was currently being subsidized by my 12-hour shifts in a trauma unit where I'd held dying people's hands and then gone home alone to my empty apartment. I wasn't a daughter to them. I was infrastructure. I was the electrical system, the plumbing, the foundation. Essential but meant to be invisible. Meant to work silently in the background so they could live in comfort without having to think about how it was all powered. I closed Instagram. Didn't comment. Didn't like the posts. Didn't send a passive-aggressive text. I simply set my phone down on my granite countertop and stared out at the Boston skyline, at the city lights reflecting off the harbor. The silence in my apartment felt different now. It wasn't lonely. It was full. Full of potential. Full of the space that opens up when you stop filling it with people who only take. They thought they'd erased me from the family narrative. Thought they could ghost me from my own life story. But they'd forgotten something crucial. Ghosts have a way of haunting the places they've been denied rest. And I was about to become the most terrifying kind of ghost. The kind that holds the deed. Monday morning broke cold and clear. I was drinking coffee, watching the sun rise over Boston Harbor, when my phone started vibrating. 6:47 a.m. My father's number. I let it ring. It rang again at 6:49. Again at 6:52. By the fourth call, I answered. Not because I wanted to hear what he had to say, but because I wanted him to hear what I had to say. I didn't speak. Just pressed the green button and waited. Morgan. His voice was different from the last call. The panic had sharpened into something closer to rage. I've been trying to reach you for 3 days. The bank is threatening foreclosure. We're 60 days past due on the mortgage. You need to fix this immediately. I'm not fixing anything, I said, taking a sip of my coffee. It was still too hot, burned my tongue slightly, but I didn't flinch. This is your mess. Clean it up yourself. My mess. His voice rose. You co-signed this loan. This is your responsibility too. If this property goes into foreclosure, your credit score drops 300 points. You'll never buy a house. Never get approved for a car loan. You're destroying your own financial future out of spite. Out of self-preservation, I corrected. There's a difference. You selfish, ungrateful, careful, dad, I interrupted. You're about to say something you can't take back. Though honestly, I'm not sure why you're worried about that. You already uninvited me from Christmas. The relationship damage is pretty much done. I heard him breathing hard on the other end of the line. Heard my mother's voice in the background asking what was happening, who he was talking to. Your mother wants to talk to you, he said. Put her on. There was shuffling, then my mother's voice came through. Softer than my father's. More wounded. The voice she used when she wanted sympathy instead of accountability. Morgan, sweetheart, I don't understand what's happening. Your father says you've stopped paying the mortgage. That can't be true. You wouldn't do that to us. You love this house. You love this family. I did love this family, I said. Past tense. Then I got uninvited from Christmas because there wasn't room for me in a 6-bedroom house I've been paying for. That was a misunderstanding, she said quickly. We had guests. Important guests for Jared's business. We were going to explain, we were going to make it up to you. By posting pictures on Instagram of your perfect family Christmas. I asked. By writing captions about being blessed to share your legacy with your children while one of those children was sitting alone in Boston. You're always so busy with work, she said, her voice taking on a defensive edge. You never make time for family. We assumed you'd be working anyway. I requested those days off 6 months ago, I said. I told you in August I was coming home for Christmas. You said you were excited. You said you couldn't wait to see me. Then 2 weeks before Christmas, I got an email uninviting me. Not a phone call. An email. Like I was a vendor whose services were no longer required. We didn't mean it like that, she protested. Morgan, please. You're being unreasonable. Family helps family. We're in trouble. The bank is threatening to take the house. You have to help us. I've been helping you for 6 years, I said. $273,600. That's how much I've transferred into your account. Money I earned while you redecorated and hosted parties and lived like you had wealth you didn't earn. I was helping. You just didn't notice because you were too busy spending. That's not fair, my mother said, and I could hear tears in her voice now. Real ones or performed ones, I couldn't tell anymore. We've given you so much. We raised you. We paid for your education. You paid for half of one semester of community college before I took out student loans for the rest, I interrupted. Loans I'm still paying off, by the way. Loans that would be paid off by now if I hadn't been subsidizing your mortgage for 6 years. So this is about money, she said, her voice hardening. You're punishing us over money. That's so petty, Morgan. So beneath you. This is about respect, I said. This is about being treated like I matter. This is about 6 years of sacrificing my own financial security to preserve yours, and the moment I couldn't be useful anymore, I was discarded. You didn't even have the decency to call me. You sent an email, Mom. An email. I don't know what you want from us, she said. We're sorry, okay? We're sorry you felt excluded. Now will you please transfer the mortgage payment so we don't lose everything? I looked out at the harbor. A ferry was crossing from Boston to Cape Cod, leaving a white wake in the dark water. No, I said. I won't. Morgan, I'm not your ATM anymore. I'm not your safety net. I'm not your backup plan. You want to keep the house? Figure it out. Sell some of that expensive furniture. Cancel your wine club membership. Tell Jared to get an actual job instead of pretending to be an entrepreneur. Make sacrifices. The way I've been making sacrifices for you for 6 years. We'll lose everything, my mother whispered. Then you'll lose everything, I said. And maybe when you're standing in the ruins of what you took for granted, you'll understand what you actually had. You didn't just have a house, Mom. You had a daughter who would have done anything for you. Who did do everything for you. And you threw her away because there wasn't enough room at Christmas. I hung up. This time I didn't just end the call. I blocked both their numbers. Blocked them on every platform. Email, text, social media. I built a wall between us as solid as the foundation of the house they were about to lose. My phone buzzed immediately. A text from Jared, somehow still able to reach me. You're really going to let them lose the house? Over Christmas? Grow up, Morgan. This is pathetic. I stared at that message for a long moment. Jared. My younger brother who'd never held a real job. Who'd been given every advantage, every opportunity, every benefit of the doubt. Who lived rent-free in a house I paid for and had the audacity to call me pathetic. I didn't block him. Not yet. Because I had plans for Jared. I opened a new browser window on my laptop and typed in a name I'd been thinking about for 3 days. David Morrison. Forensic accountant. I'd worked with David 2 years ago when a hospital administrator had been caught embezzling from the nursing staff pension fund. David was expensive, discreet, and had a particular talent for finding money trails that people wanted to keep hidden. He answered on the second ring. Morgan Ashford. It's been a while. You calling for professional reasons, or are we finally having that dinner you keep promising? Professional, I said. I need you to look into a property for me. The estate in Maine. I co-signed a renovation loan 6 years ago. I want to know the current financial status, and I want to know if there's any irregular income associated with that address. Irregular income. David's voice sharpened immediately. He could smell financial crime the way I could smell internal bleeding. You think they're laundering? I think they're living beyond their means, I said. And I want to know where the money is coming from. Can you do that? Give me 48 hours, he said. I'll find whatever there is to find. It took him 36 hours. When my phone rang on Wednesday afternoon, I was coming off a double shift, exhausted enough that I almost didn't answer. But I saw David's name and I knew. Whatever he'd found, it was big. "You were right to call me," David said, skipping the pleasantries. "I found something. Actually, I found several somethings, and at least 2 of them are definitely criminal." "Tell me," I said, sitting down on my couch. "The property isn't just a private residence. It's listed on a luxury vacation rental platform. VRBO. The listing has been active for 18 months under the name Cliffside Manor. It's marketed as a premium coastal retreat. $10,000 a week during peak season. Booked solid from May through October." I stopped breathing. "Rental. High-end vacation rental," David confirmed. "But here's where it gets interesting. The listing isn't under your father's name. It's under an LLC. Jared Ventures, LLC. Registered in Delaware 2 years ago. My brother. My unemployed, trust fund dreaming, entrepreneur in his own mind brother was running a 6-figure hospitality business out of a house I was paying the mortgage on." "How much?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Based on the booking calendar and the rates, conservative estimate, they've pulled in at least $180,000 in the last 18 months. And according to property tax records and the loan documents you sent me, not $1 of that income has been used to pay down the mortgage you co-signed. It's all going somewhere else." The room tilted. I put my hand on the arm of the couch to steady myself. This wasn't just favoritism. This wasn't neglect or thoughtlessness. This was theft. Systematic, premeditated theft. They were monetizing my investment, pocketing the profit, and making me carry the debt while they lived off the revenue. "There's more," David said. "The LLC has been paying out a monthly distribution. $5,000. Split evenly between 3 members. Brian Ashford, Susan Ashford, and Jared Ashford. They've been paying themselves a salary from rental income generated by a property you're legally liable for." I couldn't speak. Couldn't form words. The betrayal was so complete, so calculated, that my brain couldn't process it. "Morgan," David said gently. "This is fraud. Wire fraud, tax evasion, probably a few other charges I could think of if I spent an hour with a prosecutor. If you use this information, if you report this, your brother is going to jail. Your parents might too." I looked out the window at the city. The sun was setting, turning the harbor water gold and orange. "Send me everything," I said. "Every screenshot, every booking record, every LLC registration document. Everything." "Morgan," David said, his voice dropping. "I need you to understand what you're doing. If you go to the authorities with this, send me everything," I repeated. "My family made their choices. Now they get to live with the consequences." I hung up. Sat in my apartment as the sun disappeared and the city lights came on one by one. The sadness was gone. The hurt was gone. All that remained was a cold, clear understanding of exactly what needed to happen next. They treated me like infrastructure. Like a utility they could exploit. They'd taken my money, my credit, my trust, and they'd built an empire on my back while making sure I knew I wasn't welcome to visit. But here's what they didn't understand about nurses: we don't just save lives. We know exactly how to cut away infection to save the patient. We know when something is too diseased to heal and needs to be removed entirely. My family was the infection. And I was about to perform the most necessary amputation of my life. I drove north on Friday morning. Left Boston at 5 a.m. before the sun came up, before the traffic started, before I could second-guess what I was about to do. 4 hours of highway, the landscape transforming from urban sprawl to suburbs to the rugged, pine-lined coastal roads of Maine. I didn't turn on the radio. Didn't listen to podcasts or audiobooks. Just the hum of my engine and the sound of my own breathing and the mental rehearsal of what I was about to say. The route was familiar. I'd driven it dozens of times over the years, always with the hope that this visit would be different, that this time they'd see me as more than a checkbook with a pulse. I'd always been wrong. But this time I wasn't coming as the dutiful daughter hoping for scraps of affection. I was coming as the creditor. And it was time to collect. I arrived at the estate just after 9 a.m. The morning sun was hitting the house at an angle that made it look like something from a magazine spread. The renovated roof gleaming. The restored windows reflecting the ocean. The deck that I'd paid $45,000 to rebuild stretching out over the cliff face like a stage. 3 cars were parked in the circular gravel driveway. My father's Range Rover, my mother's Mercedes sedan, and Jared's BMW convertible. The convertible that he'd somehow afforded on his $0 salary from his imaginary consulting business. I didn't park in the guest area like I usually did, trying to take up as little space as possible, trying not to be an inconvenience. I parked right in front of the main entrance, blocking all 3 of their cars. If they wanted to leave, they'd have to ask me to move. And I wasn't planning on moving for anyone. I walked up the stone path, the one I'd paid to have relayed 2 summers ago when the winter frost had cracked the original pavers. $14,000 for that path. I remembered because I'd had to take an extra shift every week for 3 months to cover it. The front door was solid oak, imposing, with a brass knocker that probably cost more than my monthly rent. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out my key. The key they'd given me 6 years ago when I co-signed the loan, back when they were pretending I was part of the family and not just part of the financing. I wondered briefly if they'd changed the locks. But narcissism is often lazy, and they hadn't. The lock turned. The door opened. I stepped inside. The house smelled exactly like I remembered. Coffee and expensive candles and that particular scent of old money that's really just new debt with good cologne. I could hear voices coming from the kitchen. Casual conversation. Laughter. The sound of people who had no idea their world was about to detonate. I walked through the foyer, my boots clicking on the marble tile, another expense I'd covered. Through the living room with its custom furniture and designer curtains. Into the kitchen where my family was having breakfast like they didn't have a care in the world. They froze when they saw me. My mother was sitting at the island with a cup of coffee and a pastry. My father was reading something on his iPad. Jared was leaning against the counter, scrolling through his phone. All 3 of them looked up simultaneously, and the expression on their faces would have been funny if it wasn't so infuriating. Shock. Confusion. And underlying it all, the faint trace of guilt that meant they knew exactly why I was here. Morgan. My mother stood up, nearly knocking over her coffee. What are you doing here? You can't just walk in without what? I asked, my voice calm, clinical. Without permission. This is interesting because I have a key. And I have a legal interest in this property. Which is more than I can say for the guests you've been renting it out to. The color drained from Jared's face. I don't know what you're talking about, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. He knew. They all knew. Don't you? I pulled my phone out and opened the photos David had sent me. Turned the screen to face them. It showed the VRBO listing. The Cliffside Manor. Luxury coastal retreat. $10,000 a week. Hosted by Jared Ventures LLC. You've made $180,000 in the last 18 months renting out a house I'm paying the mortgage on. The silence that fell over the kitchen was absolute. The kind of silence that comes right before something breaks. That's... My father started, then stopped. His lawyer brain was working, trying to find the angle, the explanation that would make this okay. That's a side business. Helping cover expenses. Helping cover expenses. I repeated. You've made nearly $200,000 and you haven't paid 1 cent toward the mortgage I co-signed. Not 1 cent toward the loan that's in my name. Where did that money go, Dad? No one answered. I pulled out another photo. This one showed the LLC registration documents David had pulled from Delaware's corporate database. Jared Ventures LLC. 3 members. Brian Ashford, Susan Ashford, Jared Ashford. Monthly distributions of $5,000 split 3 ways. You've been paying yourselves a salary from a business run out of a property I'm legally liable for. A property I've transferred $273,000 into over 6 years. My mother's coffee cup was shaking in her hands. We were going to tell you, she said weakly. We were going to cut you in eventually. Eventually, I said. When? After you'd extracted enough profit to buy another property. After my credit was destroyed from the mortgage you're defaulting on. When exactly were you planning to tell me you'd been running a commercial enterprise on a residential property that I'm the co-signer for? You're overreacting, Jared said, trying to sound confident but failing. It's just Airbnb. Everyone does it. It's not a big deal. It's fraud, I said. It's tax evasion. It's breach of the loan agreement. And it's theft. You stole from me, Jared. All of you did. For 18 months, you've been profiting from my liability. My father slammed his hand down on the counter. We're your family. This house is a family asset. You don't get to just, I don't get to what? I interrupted. I don't get to stop funding your lifestyle. I don't get to object to being robbed. I don't get to demand accountability after being uninvited from Christmas in a house they've kept from foreclosure for 6 years. That was a mistake, my mother said, tears starting to form in her eyes. The performance was beginning. We handled it badly. We're sorry. We should have made room for you. You had room, I said. You just filled it with paying guests. With investors for Jared's fake business. With people who mattered more than I did because they weren't obligated to love you unconditionally. What do you want? My father asked. His voice had changed. The bluster was gone. He could see where this was going and he was scared. What do I want? I repeated. I want you out. All of you. You have until sunset to pack whatever you can carry and leave. You can't kick us out of our own home, Jared said, but his voice cracked on the last word. It's not your home, I said. It's my liability. It's a property I'm the co-signer for, that you've been defaulting on, that you've been running an illegal commercial operation out of. And as of this morning, I've filed a notice of adverse possession and a fraud claim with the county. I pulled out a folder from my bag. Legal documents Catherine had prepared for me. My lawyer. The one I'd hired 3 days ago after David sent me the evidence. This is a cease and desist for the vacation rental operation. This is a notice that the LLC is under investigation for tax fraud. And this is an eviction notice. You have violated the terms of the loan agreement by conducting commercial activity on a residential property. You have 60 days to vacate, but I'm offering you a courtesy. You can leave voluntarily today, or I can file criminal charges and you can leave in handcuffs. My mother made a sound like a wounded animal. You wouldn't. You're our daughter. You wouldn't do this to us. I'm the daughter you uninvited from Christmas, I said. The daughter you've been stealing from for 18 months. The daughter who wasn't worth a phone call or an apology but was worth $273,000 in mortgage payments. Watch me. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number, putting it on speaker so they could all hear. It rang twice. This is Catherine Morse. My lawyer's voice was professional, crisp, no nonsense. Catherine, I'm at the property with the occupants. They're refusing to leave voluntarily. Understood, Catherine said. If they don't vacate within the hour, we'll proceed with filing criminal fraud charges against Jared Ventures LLC and all 3 members. Given the amount, over $180,000, we're looking at wire fraud, tax evasion, and theft by deception. Federal charges. Mandatory minimum sentencing. Mr. Ashford, Mrs. Ashford, Jared, if you're listening, you should know that cooperation now will be viewed more favorably than cooperation after arrest warrants are issued. The kitchen was so quiet I could hear the clock ticking on the wall. The refrigerator humming. The sound of the ocean through the windows. How long? My father asked. His voice was defeated. Hollow. How long do we have? I'm being generous, I said. You have until sunset. Pack what you need. Everything else stays with the property. Where are we supposed to go? My mother asked, her voice breaking. I don't know, I said. Maybe you can rent an Airbnb. I hear Jared knows that market really well. This is cruel, my mother whispered. You're being cruel. I'm being fair, I said. Cruel would be pressing charges immediately. Cruel would be making sure everyone in your social circle knows what you did. Cruel would be calling the IRS and reporting 18 months of unreported income. I'm giving you a chance to leave with your freedom. That's more generous than you've ever been with me. Jared's phone buzzed. He pulled it out, looked at the screen, and his face went gray. The listing, he said. The VRBO listing is suspended. It says violation of terms of service. I reported it this morning, I said. Sent them copies of the deed and the fraud complaint. They're refunding all future bookings from your account. You had a corporate retreat scheduled for next week, right? $6,000. That money is going back to the client, along with the platform fees and the penalty for fraudulent listing. You're destroying everything, Jared said, but there was no fight left in him. Just the whine of someone who'd finally run out of other people's money. I'm not destroying anything, I said. I'm repossessing what was always mine. You built a business on property you didn't own, using credit you didn't earn, profiting from debt I carried. That's not entrepreneurship, Jared. That's parasitism. My father looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Not anger. Not disappointment. Something closer to fear mixed with recognition. He was seeing me clearly for the first time in my life. Not as the dutiful daughter. Not as the reliable ATM. As the person who held all the cards and always had. We raised you, he said. We gave you everything. And this is how you repay us. You raised me to be self-sufficient, I said. You raised me to understand that actions have consequences. You raised me to know the difference between investment and exploitation. Congratulations, Dad. I learned the lesson perfectly. I just never thought I'd have to teach it back to you. Pack the car, my father said to my mother and Jared. His voice was broken. Defeated. She's not bluffing. But where will we go? My mother asked again, tears streaming down her face now. We don't have anywhere. You have friends, I said. You have that social network you've been impressing with this house for 6 years. Go ask them for help. Go see if any of those relationships you've invested in are actually reciprocal. It took them 47 minutes. I stood by the door and watched them scramble, throwing clothes into suitcases, grabbing personal items, arguing in harsh whispers about what to take and what to leave. They took the expensive wine from the rack. The designer coffee maker. My mother's jewelry. My father's golf clubs. Jared tried to take the flat-screen TV from the living room until I reminded him that was technically part of the property fixtures. Leave it, I said. Take what's yours. Not what I paid for. When the last suitcase was loaded, Into my father's Range Rover. When they were all standing by their cars looking at the house they'd lived in like kings, my father turned to me one last time. "You've destroyed this family," he said. "You've chosen money over blood. I hope you can live with that." I looked at him. At this man who'd raised me but never really seen me. Who taught me about responsibility but never practiced it. Who demanded loyalty while offering none. "I didn't choose money over blood," I said. "You did. You chose money over your daughter 6 years ago when you made me the co-signer. You chose it every month when you took my payments without gratitude. You chose it when you uninvited me from Christmas to make room for paying guests. I'm just choosing myself." Finally, I closed the door. Turned the deadbolt. The click echoed through the empty house like a gavel strike. Through the window, I watched them get into their cars. Watched my father's Range Rover pull out first, spraying gravel. My mother's Mercedes followed. Jared sat in his convertible for a long moment, staring at the house, before finally driving away. When the sound of their engines faded, when the driveway was empty except for my car, I walked through the house they'd left behind. The silence was profound. No more performance of family harmony. No more pretending. Just space. Empty, clean space. I saw the scuff marks on the hardwood where they dragged furniture. The empty wine rack in the kitchen. The dishes still in the sink from breakfast they hadn't finished. I saw the ghost of the family I tried to buy my way into for 6 years. And I felt nothing. No sadness. No regret. Just the clinical satisfaction of a surgery completed successfully. The infection was removed. The patient would live. Over the next 3 days, I cleaned. I scrubbed every surface. I washed every dish. I stripped the beds and donated the linens. I was sterilizing the wound. Preparing the space for healing. I didn't sell the house, though that would have been the logical financial decision. I couldn't. Not yet. Instead, I called Catherine and told her what I wanted to do. "I want to restructure the ownership," I said. "I'm not selling. I'm repurposing." "Repurposing how?" she asked. "I want to turn this into a retreat," I said. "A respite center for healthcare workers. Trauma nurses, EMTs, emergency physicians, people who spend their lives saving others and have nowhere to go when they need saving themselves. I want to offer it to them for free. 1 week stays. All expenses covered. A place to rest." Catherine was quiet for a moment. "That's incredibly generous." "It's healing," I said. "For them and for me. This house was a monument to dysfunction. I'm turning it into something that actually helps people." "The operating costs will be significant," she warned. "Less than funding my family's lifestyle," I said. "And this time, the money is going to people who deserve it." 6 months later, the first guest arrived. A trauma nurse from Chicago named Sarah who'd worked through the worst of the pandemic and hadn't slept a full night in 3 years. I met her at the door. Gave her the key. Showed her the kitchen stocked with food. Showed her the deck overlooking the ocean. Told her the only rule was that there were no expectations. "Rest," I said. "That's all. Just rest." She started crying. Not sad tears. Relief tears. The kind that come when you've been holding everything together for so long that permission to fall apart feels like salvation. I didn't offer empty comfort. I just stood there because I understood. Sometimes healing doesn't come from fixing. It comes from finally being allowed to be broken in a safe place. The first 6 months after I evicted my family were the quietest of my life. Not peaceful exactly. More like the silence that follows an explosion, when your ears are still ringing but the debris has finally settled and you can start to see what survived. I worked my regular shifts at the hospital. Came home to my Boston apartment. Ate dinner alone. Slept without dreaming. The routine was the same as it had always been, but something fundamental had changed. I wasn't waiting anymore. Wasn't hoping for a phone call or an apology or some acknowledgement that I'd mattered. I'd stopped waiting for people who were never going to arrive. The Haven, that's what I renamed the estate, opened quietly in March. No press release. No social media announcement. Just word of mouth through hospital networks and first responder communities. A trauma surgeon I worked with knew someone who desperately needed a break. That's how Sarah found me. Sarah Chen was 38, a trauma nurse from Chicago who'd worked the COVID ICU for 18 months straight. She'd held iPads up to dying patients so they could say goodbye to families who weren't allowed in the room. She'd bagged bodies when the morgue ran out of space. She'd worked until her hands cracked and bled from constant hand-washing and sanitizer. When I opened the door to greet her, she looked like I felt 6 months ago. Exhausted. Hollowed out. Running on fumes and spite. "You must be Sarah," I said. She nodded, not quite able to make eye contact. "Thank you for this. I don't really understand it. Why someone would just offer their house for free. But my supervisor said it was legitimate and I really need to not be in Chicago right now." "I understand," I said. And I did. I showed her around. The kitchen stocked with food. The bedroom overlooking the ocean. The deck where she could sit and watch the waves. The bookshelf filled with novels and nothing medical. The complete absence of expectation. "The only rule," I said, "is that there are no rules. Sleep as much as you want. Eat when you're hungry. Sit on the deck and stare at the ocean for 8 hours straight if that's what you need. This week is yours. No one will ask you for anything." That's when she started crying. Not delicate tears. Gut-wrenching sobs. The kind that come from somewhere deep and dark, from a place that's been holding too much for too long. I didn't try to comfort her. Didn't offer platitudes about how it would get better or how she was stronger than she knew. I just stood there and let her break because I understood that sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is witness their collapse without trying to fix it. After she calmed down, after she'd wiped her face with the tissue I handed her, she looked at me with red eyes. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. "Because someone needed to," I said. "And I had the resources. And I know what it's like to give and give and give until there's nothing left and have nobody offer you a place to fall apart." She stayed for a week. I didn't see her much. Checked in once via text to make sure she had everything she needed. Otherwise, I left her alone. When she left, she wrote a note that she left on the kitchen counter. I slept for 3 days straight. I finished 2 books. I sat on the deck and cried and screamed and threw rocks into the ocean, and nobody told me I was being dramatic or that I needed to pull myself together. I feel human again. Thank you for giving me permission to be broken. I'm leaving a donation for the next person who stays here. Pass it forward. Sarah. The donation was $500. I put it in an envelope labeled groceries, and used it to stock the house for the next guest. Word spread slowly but steadily. A paramedic from Seattle who'd worked the aftermath of a mass shooting. An ER physician from Atlanta who'd lost 4 patients in one shift. A flight nurse from Denver who couldn't close her eyes without seeing the car accident victims she hadn't been able to save. They came. They rested. They left pieces of themselves behind in thank you notes and small donations and the knowledge that someone understood what it cost to save lives. My family tried to reach out during this time. I knew because my email spam folder was full of messages I never opened. Subject lines like, "We need to talk," and "Family emergency," and my personal favorite, "You're making a mistake." I deleted them all. Then, in September, my father found a way around my blocks. He showed up at the hospital. I was coming off a particularly brutal shift. A multi-vehicle accident on I-93. 3 critical patients, 2 saves, 1 loss. I was exhausted, running on adrenaline and coffee, when I walked out of the emergency department and found him waiting by my car. He looked different. Older. Thinner. His clothes were less expensive, more worn. The Range Rover was gone, replaced by a 10-year-old Honda Civic. "Morgan," he said, stepping toward me. I stopped walking. Didn't move closer. Didn't run away. Just stood there in my scrubs with my bag over my shoulder and waited. "I need to talk to you," he said. "We can't do this anymore. This silence. This punishment. You've made your point. Can we please just talk?" "I'm listening," I said. My voice was flat. Professional. The same tone I used with difficult patients. "The house," he started. "The Haven. I saw the article in the Portland paper. About the nurse who donated her estate for healthcare workers. They didn't use your name, but I knew it was you. That's our house, Morgan. Our family home." "It's my house," I corrected. "It's a property I hold the liability for. A property you were defaulting on. A property you were running an illegal rental business out of. It was never your house, Dad. You just lived there on my credit. We could have worked something out," he said. "We could have negotiated a payment plan. You didn't have to take everything." "You took everything first," I said. "You took my money, my trust, my place in the family. You took 18 months of rental income that should have gone toward the mortgage. You took Christmas. You took my dignity. I just took back property." "Your mother is sick," he said, and I heard the desperation creeping into his voice. "She's been having chest pains. Stress-related. The doctor says she needs to reduce anxiety. But she can't stop thinking about losing the house. About losing you." I felt something flicker in my chest. Concern. The old conditioning trying to activate. But then I remembered my mother's Instagram post. "Blessed to share this legacy with our children." While I sat alone in Boston. "Take her to the doctor," I said. "Get her the care she needs. That's your job as her husband. Not mine as her daughter." "We don't have the money for good insurance anymore," he admitted. "After we lost the house, I had to take a contract position. No benefits. We're on a marketplace plan with a huge deductible." "That's unfortunate," I said. "But it's not my problem to solve." "How can you be so cold?" he asked. "You're a nurse. You save people's lives every day. How can you just turn your back on your own mother?" "I'm not turning my back," I said. "I'm protecting my front. There's a difference. You want me to help Mom? Here's what I'll do. I'll send her the number for the employee assistance program at the hospital. They have resources for financial counseling, sliding scale therapy, crisis intervention. But I won't send money. I won't co-sign anything. I won't provide housing. I won't be your backup plan anymore." "What happened to family?" he asked. "What happened to the girl who would do anything for the people she loved?" "She grew up," I said. "She learned that love isn't supposed to cost $273,000. She learned that family is supposed to be reciprocal. And she learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let people face the consequences of their choices so they can finally learn to make better ones." I walked past him to my car. Unlocked it. Got in. He stood in the parking lot watching me, looking lost and small and nothing like the imposing patriarch who demanded I fix his financial crisis 6 months ago. I drove away without looking back. That night, I got an email. Not from my father. From Jared. I almost deleted it without reading, but the subject line stopped me. I'm sorry. I opened it. Morgan, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect you to respond. I just need to say this because my therapist says I need to take accountability even if it doesn't fix anything. You were right. About everything. I was using you. We all were. And I told myself it was okay because we're family and family is supposed to help each other. But I was taking. Not helping. Just taking. I got a job. A real job. Sales at a car dealership. It's not glamorous. It's actually pretty humiliating after telling everyone I was an entrepreneur. But it's honest work and I'm good at it, and for the first time in my life I'm paying my own bills. Dad is working too. Consulting part-time. Mom got a job at an art gallery. We're living in a 2-bedroom apartment in Portland and we're surviving. We're actually talking to each other. Really talking. Not just performing family. I saw what you did with the house. The Haven. I read the article about the nurses and EMTs who stayed there. About how you're offering them a place to heal for free. It's beautiful, Morgan. It's the best thing anyone in our family has ever done. And I'm sorry that we treated you so badly that the only way you could help people was by cutting us out completely. I don't expect a response. I just wanted you to know that you changed my life. Not by helping me. By stopping. Jared, I read the email 3 times. Cried a little. Not from sadness. From something closer to relief. My family was learning. They were growing. Not because I'd enabled them. Because I'd finally stopped. I didn't respond to Jared's email. Not because I was still angry. Because I wasn't ready. Maybe someday. Maybe when enough time had passed and enough healing had happened. But not yet. Instead, I forwarded the email to Catherine with a note. Hold on to this. If they ever try to make a claim on the property, I want proof they acknowledge the situation. 1 year after I evicted my family, the Haven had hosted 23 healthcare workers. Each one stayed a week. Each one left different than they'd arrived. Lighter. More whole. More human. I started getting thank you notes. Not just from the people who'd stayed, but from their families, their colleagues, their patients. Thank you for giving my wife back to us. She came home from the Haven and she was smiling again. Thank you for creating a space where my partner could finally grieve the patients he'd lost. Thank you for understanding what we need when everyone else just tells us to be resilient. I kept every note in a folder in my apartment. On the hard days, when I lost patience and came home exhausted and questioned whether any of this mattered, I read them. Reminded myself that healing isn't always loud or obvious. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's just giving someone permission to rest. My mother sent me a letter in November. A real letter, handwritten on nice stationery, forwarded through the hospital. I didn't open it for 3 days. When I finally did, I found something I'd never seen from her before: actual accountability. Morgan, I don't have the right to ask for forgiveness. I don't have the right to ask for anything. But I need you to know that I understand now what we did to you. We treated you like infrastructure. Like the foundation that holds everything up but nobody thinks about until it cracks. Your father and I are in therapy. Couples therapy and individual. The therapist asked me to write down all the ways I'd failed you as a mother. I filled 8 pages. 8 pages of moments where I chose your brother over you. Chose appearances over your well-being. Chose money over relationship. I am ashamed. I am sorry. I know those words aren't enough. I know I can't undo 6 years of exploitation or a lifetime of favoritism. But I'm trying to become someone who wouldn't do those things. Someone who deserves a daughter like you. I don't expect you to let me back into your life. I don't expect you to trust me. I just want you to know that evicting us from that house was the best thing you could have done for this family. We're healthier now than we've been in decades. We're honest now. We're actually family instead of just people who share DNA and a history of dysfunction. I love you. I don't think I've said that enough. I don't think I've shown it at all. But I love you. And I'm proud of you. And I'm sorry. Mom, I folded the letter carefully. Put it in the folder with the thank you notes. I still didn't respond. Wasn't ready. But I kept it. Because maybe someday I would be. 2 years after I evicted my family, I was sitting on the deck at the Haven. It was my weekend off and I'd driven up to do some maintenance before the next guest arrived. The sun was setting over the Atlantic, turning the water orange and gold. I had a cup of tea in my hands. And for the first time since this whole nightmare started, I felt something close to peace. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Is this Morgan Ashford? A woman's voice. Young. Nervous. This is Morgan. My name is Emily Patterson. I'm a pediatric ICU nurse in Philadelphia. Your name was given to me by Sarah Chin. She said you might have space at your retreat. I just lost 3 patients in 1 week. All under 5 years old. I can't sleep. I can't eat. I can't go back to work. I need help. I looked out at the ocean. At the house that had been a monument to my family's dysfunction and was now a sanctuary for people like Emily. Like Sarah. Like me. I have space, I said. When can you come? She arrived 2 days later. I met her at the door, gave her the key, told her the only rule was rest. She cried just like Sarah had. Just like I had, alone in my apartment, the night I'd finally chosen myself over people who'd never chosen me. When she went inside, I sat on the deck and thought about my family. About my father working an honest job for the first time in decades. About my mother in therapy, facing what she'd done. About Jared selling cars and learning what it meant to earn something. They were better now. Healthier. Not because I'd helped them. Because I'd stopped. And I was better too. Not because I'd punished them. But because I'd finally learned the most important lesson anyone can learn: you cannot save people by drowning alongside them. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let them sink until they learn to swim on their own. The sun disappeared below the horizon. The ocean turned dark. And I sat there in the gathering darkness, holding my empty teacup, listening to the waves crash against the cliffs below. I'd lost a family. But I'd gained something more valuable, the understanding that love isn't supposed to cost everything you have. That boundaries aren't cruelty. That choosing yourself isn't selfish. And that sometimes the best thing you can build on the ruins of betrayal isn't revenge. It's a place where broken people can heal. My family had wanted a daughter who would sacrifice herself endlessly for their comfort. Instead, they got a woman who turned their monument to dysfunction into a sanctuary for people who actually deserved it. And honestly, that felt a lot more like love than anything we'd ever had before. So let me ask you something, and I really want you to think about this. Have you ever been your family's infrastructure? Have you ever been essential but invisible, critical but unappreciated, funding someone else's lifestyle while being told you're not worth a seat at the table? Drop a comment and tell me your story. Because here's what I learned from 6 years of paying my family's mortgage while being excluded from their lives: being needed isn't the same as being loved. Being useful isn't the same as being valued. And sometimes the people who benefit most from your generosity are the ones who resent you most for stopping. My parents thought they could erase me from Christmas and keep my money. They thought they could run a business on my credit and I'd never find out. They thought I was too conditioned, too desperate for approval, too afraid of being alone to ever fight back. They were wrong. And when I finally stopped enabling them, when I finally let them face the consequences they'd been avoiding for years, something beautiful happened. They grew up. They got jobs. They went to therapy. They became actual people instead of parasites in expensive clothing. I didn't save them by continuing to pay. I saved them by finally stopping. The Haven has hosted 47 healthcare workers now. 47 people who save lives every day and needed someone to save them. And every single one of them has taught me the same lesson: healing doesn't come from more sacrifice. It comes from finally having the courage to stop. If you're the responsible one, the reliable one, the one everyone calls when they need something but nobody thinks to check on, I want you to hear this: you are allowed to stop. You are allowed to choose yourself. You are allowed to turn your pain into purpose and your betrayal into boundaries. And if your family can't survive without your constant sacrifice, then maybe they need to learn what my family learned, that the best thing you can do for people you love is let them discover they're capable of standing on their own. My family wanted the Haven to be their legacy. Instead, it became mine. And every person who rests there, every nurse who sleeps through the night for the first time in months, every first responder who watches the sunrise without crying, they're the family I chose. The one that actually matters. Blood doesn't make you family. Mutual respect does. Reciprocity does. Actually showing up does. And anyone who tells you differently is probably trying to use you.